Hello and welcome to another episode of Troublemakers, the podcast. I'm Phil.
And I'm Daria.
And we are here today with Sarita Pariyar. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Writer, social justice activist, founding principal investigator of Just Futures Initiative. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarita. We're hoping to speak to you today about the tireless work that you're doing in Nepal against a centuries-old caste-based system affecting the Dalit population of Nepal, and in particular for Dalit women. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Phil and Daria. I'm really happy to be here.
Great. Can you first tell our listeners a little bit about you and your story?
First, thank you so much for inviting me. And it's great to be in this place, in TCDC. So how do I start my story? Well, I began my writing when I was maybe around 16 years old in Hetauda, which is one of the city. It's like 75 kilometers east from Kathmandu city. I think as a Dalit woman, just to give you the context, that my mother was a Kshetri community. She was from Kshetri community, so-called, upper caste woman. And she got married with my father. And my father was from a Dalit community. So for me, I could not really understand the idea about untouchability as a child, right? Whether you go to the well or whether you go to the school, whether you meet your villagers, every time I think they really reminded me that I was different. And I couldn't make sense that why someone cannot touch others, right? And it was really bizarre. And I think we were also told who to look at, who not, who to touch, who not, right? Those kind of things. And then I started thinking that, okay, what is going on here? The same person who used to come to my home and, take food or something like that, but same person, they did not used to accept my, money, meaning like it was little difficult, for them to accept me as a person in public space. And then I thought like, okay, I think I am going something different, and whatever I have been living, it is not right. All I could say was like, I couldn't make sense, but I knew from the very early age that something was going wrong. And then once I completed my school living certificate, like 10th grade, then I realized like, okay, I need to write whatever I'm going through. That's one of the ways, to express my feeling. So that time I had no clue that I actually would get money after, writing all these things. Meaning what I'm saying is like, I thought like maybe I am supposed to pay, in order to get published. And then I thought like, okay, I'm going to write about it. And that's how I started my writing journey. And I worked as an activist. I used to go to the Dalit village settlement and talk to Dalit women and listen their experience. And I realized that I was not only the one who was going through that. When I saw people, then I realized that there are many, many people who have been going through this problem, and it is such a inhuman problem. How can someone imagine not to touch other people, right? And then I also worked for a bit in radio station. And then, and that's how I started my writing journey. And after working for almost 2 years as a columnist in local newspaper, which is called Hetauda Sandesh, that's a local newspaper. And after working for 2 years, I think I felt like I am an empty pot. I told everything what I had to tell. And then I realized that I need to study more. That's how the journey began. And now I am currently, leading a project initiative, which we call Just Futures Initiative. And through Just Futures Initiative, we are trying to interrogate caste, class, gender, and sexuality. These are very, um, um, broad categories, and when it intersects with each other, it becomes more even complicated. So, and what we are trying to do is we are interrogating these conceptual categories, and we are trying to engender new narratives of Dalit women and Dalit sexual minorities. So we are trying to look at how would Nepal and the world look like if we were to see from the vantage point of Dalit women and Dalit sexual minorities. So yeah, that's what I'm doing, and I'm not only our team, our core team, we are learning a lot, and I think we just want to treat Dalit women as knowledge producers, because people always come up with the mindset that they need to teach to Dalit women, and we're trying to challenge that. No, this is the time that we can learn from Dalit women and Dalit sexual minorities. That's what we're doing. And it has been, so far, it has been amazing experience.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the word Dalit and the Dalit population in Nepal today?
Dalit is considered as quote unquote untouchable people, but in modern day and age, we use the term Dalit, and they're also considered as broken people. And these people have been historically marginalized, for ages, for 1,000 years. And it is, one of the, now we have like 13 to 20% of population in Nepal. 1 out of every 6th person in Nepal is a Dalit, and also in India. So altogether, like we hear that we are more than 250 million Dalits worldwide. And it's quite a huge number. And yeah, that's what I would say in brief.
So when working with Dalit women, why not just focus on gender or just focus on caste or class or sexuality? Why is it important to you to embrace these intersections?
Yeah, I think to give you the context is like when we talk about, for example, when we talk about class question, then often in Nepali context, people, they do not see caste as an important category, right? For example, the Nepal Communist Movement, I think we do not see that they have greater realization of the caste problem, right? And when we talk about caste, most of the, I do want to hear talk about that when we say caste, then it's not only about Dalit category. It's not only about 13 to 20% of people, right? It's about the structure. It's about the, social oppression. It's about systemic problem, and it exists everywhere, whether we talk about academia, whether we talk about media, whether we talk about civil society, or we talk about political parties. Caste is everywhere. We eat, we drink, we breathe with caste, So, which is why I think it's very important to see that in an intersection way. So when we talk about gender, and I think people would know if someone is seriously following the debate of, feminism in South Asia is predominant by, so-called upper caste women. And it is same thing in Nepal as well. And what I want to share in this brief conversation is that we really need to, like those people who believe in feminism in South Asia, without critically interrogating the idea of caste, it would be incomplete, right? Because in caste system, what they do is like, in order to control the caste purity, I think they control the sexuality of women. So what do I mean by that? For example, that a Brahmin woman cannot have a choice to marry with a person that she likes. And why it is that is because that Brahmin women has to continue that caste purity. So which is why in this conversation, what I do want to highlight is that the intersection of caste and gender is very, very important. And here where, I do want to highlight what Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar has said is, like in order to talk about gender, they have to also see the caste as a serious category. And where he talks about this Brahminical patriarchy, but indeed Professor Uma Chakravarti has worked on this concept, and which is why, coming back to your question, that it really complicates the problem. And of course, when we say sexuality, it also falls into the category of gender. But now people, slowly, gradually, people are trying to explore this concept as a, separate concept. And I think with this Just Futures initiative, we are also trying to educate ourselves, because when we talk about this LGBTIQA+, I think there is also the element of caste, which people often ignore, which is why, the work of Akil Kang and other, young people who have been working on this is very important. And I do want to say that this term, Dalit sexual minority, is a relatively new concept, especially in Nepal. So, yeah, I think this is why, like these all categories, when it overlaps with each other, makes even more difficult to understand the reality.
What are some of the things that you're doing about all of this?
As I mentioned earlier, currently I'm one of the co-principal investigators of Just Futures initiative, where we're leading this initiative. So Sona Khatik, who I admire a lot, so she and I, we're leading. And what we're trying to do here, I do want to mention that we have explicitly said that non-Dalits and Dalit male will be playing enabling role, right? Because most of the time what happens is like they just, in general, people just use the word Dalit women, but actually they do not make them part of this decision making. So what we are trying to do with this Just Futures initiative is to interrogate these, caste, class, gender, and sexuality, and how can we engender new narratives of Dalit women? Because there has been the narratives that how Dalit women are victimized and how they're not able to stand for themselves, and how they don't know how to walk, or they don't know how to talk, right? And they don't know how to speak to their minds. All kinds of these narratives are very much predominant. And these are not the narratives by Dalit women. These are the narratives which, have been imposed by so-called upper caste people. And now what we are doing is like, let's create a forum And let's try to listen what Dalit women and Dalit sexual minorities are saying. Here, what we are doing is it's a 18-month fellowship, right? And most of them have done this higher secondary education. Some of them are also, doing masters. So we are making our own curriculum because in most of the universities, whether it's about the government universities or the private universities, I think people do not often seriously engage with caste question. That's the fact. And of course, the intersectionality issues, I think the term is quite fancy, but they are just using the term without realizing the meaning of it. So what we are doing is like we are creating our own curriculum, and we are also collecting reading materials, and we are also mindful of, collecting these materials, which we say like textual and non-textual, right? And also that we are trying to be mindful of what kind of reading materials that we are going to provide them that are also by marginalized communities, because we want to tell them and us that look, there are our stories and there are immense possibilities to write and to tell our own stories through various means. So I think the key feature, we call it Sikne Sikaune in Nepali, which means teaching and learning. So that's the second thing that I want to highlight. And the third thing is we are collaborating with some of the really good and committed intellectuals, historians, writers and activists from around the world. And I think in general, what they do is like when people are expert, they always have this attitude, to just teach them. But we are requesting, no matter how expert you are, can you come with the learning attitude and, be patient and learn something different from Nepali Dalit women. That's what we are doing. And then the other element that I want to also highlight about Just Futures initiative is about, the kind of methodology we are using, the kind of pedagogy that we are using is like, how can we appreciate each other? How can we respect each other? How can we love each other? So I think there is a certain kind of process that we are still experimenting, and we are following that. So let's see what is going to happen. But all I can say is this is quite, ambitious initiative, and I hope it will take some time to come in a certain form. But as one of the founding principal investigator, I do feel that I'm learning a lot from all these women and all these scholars and core team members, that the way they're asking hard questions and the way they're passionate about sharing their lived experiences, I think I could feel that there's something to learn different.
You are a writer. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you write and how being a writer has shaped the way you approach social activism?
Caste and gender, and to some extent, I'm also trying to work on the sexuality questions. So primarily, I write from the standpoint of Dalit women, and I focus a lot on Dalit women's lived experiences. So, and I try my best to write in a simple language so that it is accessible to our people. And also, like, I think I want to, in a way, challenge that how our lived experiences can be the knowledge. And I think I'm also asking a lot of questions from my writing is like, what constitutes knowledge? Whose knowledge counts, right? The kind of trauma that our that we people have been going throughout the generation is a lot. And can we consider that as source of knowledge? I think I'm questioning that. And what I'm also doing through my writing is that Dalits, throughout the history, we are denied and we have been killed just asking basic questions. For example, I'm remembering of Lakshmi Pariyar. That woman was killed, and she made a mistake of asking question to the village official. She asked some question surrounding the budget thing, and she was being killed in front of her, children. So she was seriously beaten, and in few days she died. What I'm trying to tell here is that we people have been denied of asking questions. So my writings are mostly, they're mostly focused regarding, okay, like, can we ask questions? What kind of questions should we be asking? Right? And often, like, who writes the stories, when and how, often shapes the truth, right? So which is why I think that's what I'm doing. And I think it is helping now. If I see, for example, I do want to talk about the recent book that I wrote regarding, it's a children book, Utsukta, which means curiosity. And I was, it really weaves the story about intergenerational caste experience. I drew, inspiration from my mother-in-law and mothers I've met so far, and also my bhauju, like my sister-in-law. I think I've tried to weave the story of intergenerational caste experience. And the way, and we used this book, to for this Just Futures fellows. It was we used that story or Sona's documentary. We used as a resource material, and I was very much touched by, like, 16 fellows. They wrote reviews about the book, and they could easily relate to the book. And they were, instead of reviewing the book, they were writing about their own experience. And I could not imagine that how it inspired young Madhesi Dalit women, and they were saying that, Didi, I too can write this kind of stories. You are reminding us that writing is possible. And you're giving us the value that we too are worthy people to write. So those kind of comments made me very emotional, that if I can do that, then, and I mean to me that matters the most, that these people, these young friends, they too are equally dreaming of writing and telling or expressing what they have been going through in various forms. Some are very interested in photography, some are interested in arts, some are interested in writing poems, and some are interested in writing their memoirs. So I think from my writing, this is what I'm, I could see. And I think it is also one of the forms of activism. And yes, I don't know to what extent I responded to your question.
I had another question about legal protection and the laws. Where are they?
I think if you were to ask this question to Nepali people, they have this standard answer. Most of them would always answer you saying that, oh, we have the best constitution in the world. And there are many, many, progressive laws. Only the issue is they don't get implementation. That's, I would say, like, um, the standard response that Nepali people, ordinary Nepali people, let's put it that way, they would respond. But I'm sure you must be asking, this question in regarding to Dalit people. And if I were to say, then yes, we have, you know, laws, and um, and in 2015 constitution that which says, caste-based discrimination and untouchability is considered as social crime. And legally, I think caste system was abolished in 1963. Here, I do want to give you a little bit of context so that the audience would understand that how this legal history has created one of the most unequal societies in the world. Nepali society in the world is like, I do want to talk about this Muluki Ain, which we call National Legal Code, that was from 1854 to 1963, almost like, over 108 years, that legally codified people from sacred thread wearing caste, alcohol drinking caste, non-alcohol drinking caste, slaveable people, enslavable people, and untouchables. There are different categories. And what I'm trying to say here is, like, people are discriminated on the basis of what they eat and drink, right? And it was legally sanctioned for that long period. And I think the soul of that system still exists in today's constitution. So what do I mean by that is, in 2015 constitution, indeed people say that it is one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. But I think that's a partial view, right? Depending on which caste location people are, they interpret that way. But in Nepali constitution, and which, we are supposed to be like secular state. So in our 2015 constitution, the secularism has been defined as the continuation of Sanatan Dharam. Sanatan Dharam means, of course, the Hindu religion. And if there is Hindu religion, then of course, the caste-based discrimination exists. So what I'm trying to tell here is, even if caste-based discrimination and untouchability is legally abolished, it is very, very much prevalent in our everyday life, because that's the founding principle of Nepal. And there was times when, Nepal used to be known as Asali Hindustan, the real Hindustan. So, yes, we have laws, but still, when people go through this caste-based discrimination, still people have to protest in order to file the petition. That's the everyday reality. So I don't know, I don't know what to say about our judicial system, because it is one of the, I would say, the most status quoist, legal system, because most of them are from the so-called higher caste people. And these Hindu people, I think for them to practice caste is so normal for them, right? And these are the learned people, and the representation of these so-called higher caste people is really high. And I don't know if I'm not wrong, maybe 4 or 5 are Dalit, are judges from Dalit community, and we have like I don't exactly remember the number of judges, but like I do remember there are like more than 88. I don't know. I need to check, but there are a handful people, from Dalit community, and which is why this is very complex question that um, that this idea of justice, the idea of fairness is so much derived from the Hindu jurisprudence, right? And I don't know how these Dalits, indigenous peoples, Madeshis, Muslims, other backward caste community would get justice from this system, which is why I think there is a debate. We have started talking about Dalit jurisprudence. We don't know what does that look like, but I think this is also part of the conversation going on. Otherwise, these people will not, get justice. So, yeah, this is what I would say.
Sarita, would you tell us about some of your reflections following the George Floyd protests? What took place in Nepal at that time?
What Michelle Alexander has written, that it is also this Black Lives Matter also got visibility across the world. It is the first time in history that Black Lives Matter got visibility across the world. And I think there is a lot of inspiration that Dalits, in South Asia is getting, from Dalit Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. And there is a deep history behind it. If I were to just focus on the incident after the George Floyd case was, it was so coincident that on a very same time in 2020, 24 or 22, now I forgot the exact date, but it was just one or day before or after, like that. So we had a very similar incident, which we call Rukum Hatyakanda, which, that is also the origin of Maoist movement. And the guy name is Namaraj Vishwakarma, right? He dared to marry with a woman that he liked, Susma Malla. And these 6 boys, the 4 were from Dalit community, 1 was from Chetri community, who are also considered as warrior, and the other guy was from indigenous community. So these 6 boys were chased by villagers, and just because he married with that woman, these 6 boys were killed. They were chopped off, they were thrown in the very river. And I'm telling you, we really can't imagine. And also it's very, very how do I even, I don't know, I don't have the right vocabulary to capture the essence or capture the reality, what happened, meaning they were killed, they were thrown in the river, and there, of course, there was a lot of media attention. If I'm not wrong, that many people claim that this was one of the cases that drew most, national attention in the history of Dalit movement in Nepal. And it was like, for me personally, for months, in general, I try to talk to the survivors' family. I talk to them, I listen to them. But in this case, I think it took me a while that I couldn't talk to them in person. And we couldn't sleep. Seriously, we couldn't sleep. We were just crying all the time. And I think it was also the time to really see that how people would react to this kind of incident, right? Of course, I do want to thank people who wrote about it, who raised voice against this unimaginable incident. And I think they were just doing their part. And, with good intention, whoever have done, I think not only I, on behalf of our community, we're very grateful for the national, international people. But what also made us think was like, it was very, very performative. And people who sounded as progressive force, they were very much engaged and they were very much talking about George Floyd case to just show them that how progressive they are. And they were not, when I say they, of course, here I am referring to non-Dalits or white people or non-Nepali or non-South Asians or diaspora, So this is what I mean by they. I think they were not trying to engage what is happening to their own home. And some people were trying to be very politically correct, like, oh, Sarita ji, I want to do this, I want to do that, but I don't know how, like all kinds of things. And some people were very, very sympathetic toward us. I could not feel the realization they have within themselves. Rather, they were pity for us. If I remember correctly, I avoided doing interview to media because we were so disappointed and angry that do not come to us and ask like what has happened to us at the moment. If you are a reporter, if you think that you do have a responsibility, then please go to your family, talk to them, have conversation. Do not come to us and ask what is happening to you. I am not here to give my opinion. We are already going through such a big trauma, and do not ask us. And I avoided doing interview. For me, just, taking time for myself. I think what I'm trying to tell here is that we were not even given enough time to process what we were going through. How can people be so brutal? I seriously don't understand. And I avoided doing interview and I told them like, look, be human first. We don't need your mercy, So please, as a reporter, just don't report. Think that you are a privileged person and you are in a position to be responsible and ask hard questions within your family, within your friends, within your professors, within your own peer groups. So that's what we did. So the point that I'm trying to make here is why people would do this kind of performative thing, like I honestly do not understand that how people cannot recognize their privilege. And one thing which I'm so much done I'm so tired of. I'm very hopeful, as a young person, as a young woman. I cannot be depressed. I must be hopeful. But on the other hand, I am so tired with people who are scholars, who are intellectuals, and who have this intergenerational wealth. They do not take time to pause and think about their responsibility. And when I talk to person, I try to believe, like this is one thing that as oppressed people, I think we believe in a way and we trust people. But on the other hand, we cannot trust people. We cannot trust because they always know when they can shut us up. They're very strategic. They exactly know when they should put us down. They look for the very right moment, which is why, as a young Dalit woman, when we try to look for good mentors, of course, like from our community, people, we do not have many mentors, right? And we definitely have to ask help from other people. But when we go with them, I'm so done. Which is why I think now we are creating our own space on the one hand, but again, they also blame us like, oh, like now you're again segregating, you're just having your own forum. So I think, since I'm very emotionally attached with this work, with this movement, I get so, like I'm carried away all these things. But getting to your point, Phil, is like, I must say that people, they're good at performing. And when it is about caste, people are not yet comfortable to talk about because it's about you, it's about me, which is why they take easy route to talk about race in the United States or across the world, whereas they do not feel comfortable talking about caste. When we talk about caste, it's about food, it's about water, it's about academia, it's about marriage, it's about kingship, It's a very much embedded in our everyday life. And that people do not feel comfortable. Yeah, that's what I would say. I'm sorry for going long.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sarita. But how do you see change happening to address these deeply harmful narratives and to transform the discrimination and the oppression and the injustice that permeates? And maybe also, where have you seen success in your work so far?
Yeah, I think, yes, I think all we can do is to hope, right? And I clearly see that something is happening, right? For example, I do want to acknowledge the core faculty members at Just Futures initiative. There are people who are very, very committed not only to support young Dalit women and Dalit sexual minorities, they have a very kind of understanding that even if they come from non-Dalit backgrounds, but they're very mindful of that how they are part of the caste system. When they support Dalit women, they're supporting themselves and they are humanizing themselves, right? I think they have come to this initiative with that understanding. And for us, for example, for Sona and me, we are getting mentorship from some of the most amazing people in the world. Most amazing, no matter how much we thank them, still it would be less. And I think to see someone like Ashok Gurung, who is a professor of practice and he taught at the new school for a long time, and he taught a course in, at the new school, and the title of the course was Rethinking, the Politics of Dignity and Equity, Rethinking Caste Globally. So when he designed the course, he really involved young Dalit scholars. And when he collected reading materials, he deliberately, included writings from young Dalit scholars. And he made that course because he wanted to learn. He did not try to prove himself that as a Gurung person, as an indigenous person, he's doing some kind of sympathy toward Dalits. He came up with the attitude that he wants to build curriculum that engages with one of the most urgent issues of our times. And that course, like my friend Sunaina Arya, who is a scholar of philosophy, friend like Anurag Bhaskar is one of the top, young Dalit lawyer, like Kalyani K, like my friend, Sona and I, we were some of the resource person for that course. And it was a great opportunity for someone like us to engage with the graduate students at the new school. They learned a lot. We learned a lot. And we were not treated as these, these untouchables who do not know what to do with their life. So getting support from like him, and the other person that I want to talk about is Rajendra Moharjan, who is one of the, renowned political intellectual, and Ashmina Ranjit, a renowned artivist. And, there are like Uma Chakravarti, Professor Bimal Thorat, there are a couple of, like Saileja Paik. There are a couple of people who have come from non-Dalit backgrounds and who have also come from Dalit backgrounds. And they are, building this team, and they are supporting all these young Dalit women. And when I see people like them, I seriously see hope. And here I do want to also talk about my friend Leah Everest, She is from North Carolina, and she has been, helping us a lot. So when someone feel like they're not helping others, they're helping themselves, I think it doesn't matter about whether someone is white, black, pink, yellow, or green. All they can do is they can do something for themselves, without patronizing other people. So I think seeing like Leah, seeing like, our faculty members, seeing like Mary, my friend, I think I see hope. And I seriously can see hope, and, like there are not only bad people in the world, there are many good people who are making difference, and we're helping someone like me and Sona to make the world a better place for all.
Well, thank you so much, Sarita. It's really, really, really beautiful to have you here and to have this conversation. I find myself reflecting on so many things and, transformed by our interaction. I really appreciate that. And I just want to ask you if there's anything that you'd like to share with us that you haven't shared already. Just that.
I do want to talk about bell hooks. The day when I accidentally met her at the new school, and the talk was about moving from pain to power. And to me, that was an eye-opening conversation. And I could totally relate what she was saying. Of course, understanding English language was very, very difficult that time. But the kind of ideas she shared with Cornel West changed my life. Because she's able to, to really bring the voices of women from margins, and that I could relate to Nepali Dalit women or Dalit women in South Asia or any women who are oppressed women can relate. And I just love her so much. I mean, I'm so grateful for someone like her who can speak to anyone.
I think in the same vein, in my experience, it was Audre Lorde. So I hadn't been aware of Audre Lorde, and a friend gave me Sister Outsider, of course, a collection of some of her essays and writings. And, before intersectionality was this very proliferated word, buzzword, here's a woman navigating race. She's not accepted in the Black community because of other aspects, maybe her sexuality or her career. She's not accepted within, lesbian communities because she's Black. She's not accepted, in academia because of her particular approaches. She had such rich language and ways of capturing her experience. And for me, who doesn't come from her same gender or race or experience or background, really, and I've just, I've triaged, even other aspects that she talks about, but to encounter her writing and to see so much beauty in it, and to see in her worldview, she didn't look away from death. She didn't look away from the harsh realities, from oppression, from the powers that be, the people in our midst that abuse us and harm us. She looked straight at them, and yet she came out with such a beautiful worldview that just really gave me so much hope. And when I read her, and then I got deeper exposed to bell hooks, following Audre Lorde, to have those writers in my life, those thinkers in my life. I had been sort of doing intersectionality in this kind of functional or strategic way as an organizer, Okay, definitely we need, women on our team. We can't exclude half the population from our struggle, We need children and elders to do A, B, C, D. Here's the sort of moral authority they might have, or I grew up playing a lot of like video games and board games and that kind of thing. So I have this kind of built-in bias for thinking about strategy and that kind of thing. So when I encountered their very human writing, it was not divorced from political struggle, of course, from economic struggle, et cetera, et cetera. But when I encountered their writing, it really helped me take a step back and like evaluate my orientation toward the world, toward myself, toward others. It helped me treat myself better. It helped me engage more deeply in other people's realities and experiences and to love them in more sincere ways where I could. So I just, I'm just sharing this. I don't know where it's going. There's no question I have for you, but just to say that I can really appreciate that there are writers who hold us and who make us who we are. And that I really believe, Sarita, that your writing will make people who they are.
Thank you.
It will transform them.
Thank you, Phil. I think all I want to say is first, thank you so much for inviting me. And just being in this space is also a form of resistance, right? A woman all the way from Nepal in Arusa, and just, having this podcast talk. I'm grateful for you both and everyone who is listening to this talk. Please, please find time to learn, listen, and engage with Dalits. And please, please make friends. And just do not do this out of pity. Just treat them as equal humans. And everyone has right to live with their dignity. And please just be open and learn and listen to Dalits in general and Dalit women in particular. Thank you so much.
With admiration, thank you.
Thank you, Daria. Thank you so much, Phil.